Right. And recording started.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Could we have the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Sean Douglas,
Here.
Michael Howry,
Here.
Michelle Hayes,
Here.
Brian Horvath,
Here.
Gene Sensi,
Here.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howry,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath,
Yes.
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Vote is 5-0.
We're going to start under board member reports, but we're going to have a moment of silence for Dr. Roger Gowdy, our previous superintendent, and Angela Smith is going to read something we prepared for that.
Tonight, we remember Dr. Roger J. Gowdy. While there is much to be said about the imprint Roger left on this district and community, pictures speak volumes. At this time, we're going to play a short video of his time here in Madison.
And before I leave, I have to introduce one more person. 4 years ago, I met Roger, and he was our new superintendent. Roger, as you know, I have to say, is very passionate about Madison. I also proud to say he is my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Roger Gowdy.
Thank you, Mr. Riker. First of all, it's a pleasure to be your superintendent. I want to say that from the get-go. In the 40-year experience I've had around 4 different school districts, without a doubt, this has been my favorite, most enjoyable experience I've had in the field of education.
And finally, what I guess what I'd like to say to you is, enjoy the ride here. You guys all have hard jobs. I believe me, I really understand that. Your jobs aren't easy, and we live in challenging times. We have stresses in our families, we have stresses externally, internally, and everything else. And every day isn't a smooth journey. But enjoy the experience. Enjoy the experience.
When remembering Roger, his caring spirit, his passion for life, and his love of Madison will always be remembered. Even after he retired, you would see him supporting his beloved Blue Streaks at various events throughout the community. Roger's zest for life was apparent in all he accomplished. From his start as a teacher in the Warrensville City Schools, doing the best for kids was his core mission. He took his talents to become business manager for the South Euclid-Lyndhurst City School District, and finally, after 35 years in education, came to Madison in 2009, where he served as superintendent until 2015. In addition to his long career in education, Roger was active in local government in Solon, Ohio. Before moving to Madison, Roger served on the Solon City Council and as vice mayor before serving on the Solon Board of Education. A gift of Roger's was the ability to develop leadership. That was the teacher in him. He would see people's potential and let them develop. He believed that athletics and education worked in tandem with one another. His love of athletics not only impacted Madison, but amateur athletes at the national and international level through his involvement and role as president and CEO with the Amateur Athletic Union. While Roger accomplished a great deal in his life, with many academic degrees culminating in his doctorate in educational leadership from the University of Akron, his family was whom he was most proud. He always put family first. From his wife, Christine, to his three sons, Brian, Brett, and Kyle, and his daughter, Taylor, known to many as his baby girl. They were the heart and soul of his life. Roger was also a proud new grandparent to Lillian and Yaya. The impression that Roger Gowdy left on the world during his 69 years of life will be measured for years to come. So tonight, we honor his legacy with a moment of silence and extend our deepest and most sincere sympathy to Roger's family and friends. I think this would be appropriate to share at this time, and I'll be sending more communication out through the Good News newsletter that in memory of Roger, there's members of the Madison school family, as well as some of his other friends in education, that would like to honor his memory by awarding an annual scholarship in his name. Those who wish to donate can make checks payable to Madison local schools, and in the memo, put Dr. Gowdy in the scholarship. The scholarship will be awarded to a deserving student who is involved in extracurricular activities, provides service to the community, and achieves in the classroom. So more information will be forthcoming on that, but it's a fitting tribute to a man that had great influence in this district and in this community.
Well, although I was not on the school board when Dr. Gowdy was our superintendent, I was the president of the Madison Public Library Board of Trustees. And I was president when we were in the process, where the schools were in the process of building the new buildings that we have. So that would be South Elementary and Madison Middle School. And during the Madison Middle School construction, the library had to agree to certain easements and things of those sort. And Dr. Gowdy came to our board meetings and talked very passionately about those buildings. And it seems to me that those are part of his legacy, is 2 brand new buildings in Madison, which is a school district that doesn't have a lot of money to get buildings built. And to be able to successfully pass a levy to get those buildings built is testament to his dedication and his passion. He was very passionate about it. I mean, I still remember in those meetings, I mean, he had the architects on the phone. He called him about 3 times during the board meeting because we had a couple of questions. And he said, no, we're getting this done. And so he kept calling the architects on the cell phone that he had in his hand. And he had his board president there at the time. And he was very passionate about those buildings. And I think our students today are lucky to have benefited for those kids in South Elementary, Madison Middle from those buildings. I'm sure many more accomplishments as well, but those just stand out for me based on my involvement with him. So, you know, really appreciate his efforts in those areas.
He was very generous, And just to echo the sentiments of the buildings, I learned so much from him through that building project. It was inspiration and something that is a once in a lifetime career experience, because people aren't going around building buildings all the time. And he allowed my name to be put on the dedication plaque, which he didn't have to do. So, and just all the different things I learned from him throughout his tenure here.
I was fortunate enough that I was able to serve with Roger. And he was new to Madison, and I was a new board member, and we butted heads quite a bit in the beginning. And but I came to respect him a great deal, and came to like him very much, and I'm going to miss him very much. He was a good man. He was extremely honest and kind and generous, and really just made people feel as if they were important. He was actually made them feel as if he was actually hearing what they had to say. And on a personal note, he encouraged me a lot, shared some of his stories with me about his background and where he came from, and through education, all the things that he was able to do, and encouraged me to go back to school as well. And I won't forget that. He will be missed.
Yeah, so I'll try and say it later.
Well, we are, go ahead, Angela.
Yeah, just quickly, I'd like to thank Joe Measle for pulling together this video today. As I started writing the moment of silence, the words, hearing Roger's voice, because I didn't even know Joe was going to pull those clips, was a surprise, and it was just perfect. And I appreciate Joe, and I appreciate Susan for helping put what I think is a nice tribute to a man who's had a lot of influence on this district.
All right, so Sean, let me try this again if I can.
Sure.
Roger's passion for his family, for Madison, and youth sports was like nobody else I'd ever met, and we are going to miss him.
Okay, I see Mike's now muted, so I don't know if anyone else wants to make any comments or have any other areas under board member reports. If anyone would like to give a report or make any additional comments, they can do that now. Okay.
Sean, give it 1 minute. Apparently we lost Mike Howry in the deal here,
Okay,
and he's back.
we'll take a brief pause until Mike can get back online here.
He's back.
I know Spectrum's been having a lot of problems throughout the whole region.
And that's who we have. So
Not just Madison, but even in my community, I see things posted all over Facebook about Spectrum right now.
And again, that's one of the things we'll have to keep an eye on during a virtual board meeting, that if we happen to have a board member drop off, we need to give them a chance to come back in.
Sorry for the delay.
I'm on Spectrum and I've had about 5 things that flash on my screen that says my connection is suspect, something along those lines. But all right, so moving on to the next order of business, we have a resolution regarding electronic meetings. Is this a resolution that basically extends our ability to conduct meetings electronically like we are today beyond, I think, what, December 31st?
Yes, I actually think the original deadline was December 1st.
Okay.
So this extends it to, I believe, June 30th, which is what the governor has allowed the extension to go to.
Hopefully our county will improve and our students will return to in school. And then we would return to in-person board meetings, but that's not the case at the moment. So it would be necessary to pass this resolution to extend our ability to conduct meetings electronically. So do we have a motion for that?
I'll move.
All right, any discussion? Roll call?
Michael Howry,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath. You're a little frozen, Brian.
Yes.
Thank you. Gene Sensi,
Yes.
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
vote is 5-0.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of November 17th, 2020?
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Michelle Hayes,
Abstain.
Brian Horvath,
Yes.
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howry,
Yes.
vote is 4-0-1.
Okay, we'll now open the public participation portion on agenda items only. Anyone wishing to address the board would have 5 minutes to do so. If you, in doing so, if you would state your name and address for the board. So Mike will now, I guess, give everyone the ability to comment.
Yeah, if everybody that wants to unmute can unmute.
Are you seeing anything, Mike?
I'm not seeing anything, Sean.
Okay. All right, so we'll now close that and we'll move to reports and recommendations of the treasurer.
Thank you. I actually don't have anything to talk about that's not on the agenda, because actually I doubt I could at this point. So the first is to approve the financial reports for all funds, fund-to-fund transfer report, and the check payment register for November 2020.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Brian Horvath,
Yes.
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howry,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Vote is 5-0. The second item, let me explain real quick. It's an annual resolution. Sometimes we have to do it twice a year. The auditors send our values down to the state. They certify the millage that's needed, and this is millage that is needed to generate the dollars associated with those levies. This doesn't give us any authority to pass any additional levies. It's just basically it's the amounts that are going to appear on your tax bill come the end of December and early January. So the resolution is to accept the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor.
I'll move. I'll second.
Who seconded?
Michelle,
Who moved then?
Mike,
Oh, okay.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call.
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes?
Michael Howery,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
yes.
Ryan Horvath.
Yes.
Vote is 5-0. And then finally, the transfer from the general fund to the debt service fund. We have debt service associated with the LED lighting project. And this is the December 1st payment, both principal and interest. So a resolution to transfer from the general fund 001 to fund 002 debt service fund in the amount of $36,360.70 for the principal and interest on the LED lease purchase agreement.
I'll move.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Sean Douglas,
Yes?
Michael Howery,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Ryan Horvath,
Yes.
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Vote is 5-0. Thank you.
Report to the administrative team.
Okay, well, I'd like to just start tonight quickly with John Dragus, just to sort of provide an update on where we're at with athletics for winter. Obviously, with everything that's been going on in the county related to COVID, and our 3 of our league teams being in Lake County, with us being purple, there's been much discussion about what to do, when to do it. And, John and I have been on the same page in conversations, and I have to share publicly that a lot of superintendents did not have the same information from a meeting that was had during our league that I had, because John communicates with me pretty regularly. Throughout this pandemic, we have talked probably 2-3 times a week. So I appreciate John and his keeping me informed of what's going on with the league and what some of our thoughts are. John.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Board, just to get you up to date or up to speed as to what's happening, Mrs. Smith and I worked on a plan similar to what we did in the fall, where we could return winter sports to practices and then finally to competition. We sort of want to do it to phase it in over 2 weeks, where we start with more conditioning type of practices this last week of December after Christmas, but before New Year's. And then the week of January 4th, we can return to somewhat normal practices, and then start competitions the week of January 11th. Tearing apart and putting a schedule together that I normally do 9 or 10 months out in front in 9 or 10 days has been a challenge, but I've managed, I think, to get the pieces of the puzzle back together so that we'll probably be around 50% of the schedule, or so, which is about normal for January and February. So I was able to somewhat keep us kind of on pace for what we would normally experience game load wise. Looking at the county and looking at what other people are doing, we're looking at our spectator policies, Mrs. Smith and I, just because of the county being purple. Some schools are no spectators. The governor's asked for, at least parents to be able to come. Our gym, we have a very large gym, seating capacity. We can comfortably even under the 15% rule, have 4 or 6 family members per athlete for basketball and wrestling. I don't think we should go that high. Some schools are doing no spectators, others are doing various types of spectator policies. But Mentor returned to practicing this week. Perry and Lake Catholic are in competition right now, just to give you an update of what's going on in the area. Kenston, Chardon, and Mayfield from our conference have continued to have competitions and practices going since the season started. So they've been under 0 restrictions. Riverside, North, South, and us have been under the suspension of sports so far. The Catholic League in Cleveland is playing. Quite a few of the Portage County and Geauga County other schools are participating in athletics. I see every day schools looking for competitions, but Mrs. Smith and I are committed to doing it safely. We understand the value of extracurriculars, but also we know that schools first, they're student athletes and so on and so forth. So if you guys have any questions about anything, please ask. I can answer them to the best of my ability, but we do have a plan in place. Obviously, it's subject to change based on, the conditions. So,
John, all these other schools that are right now having practices and competitions, is it just basketball, or is it wrestling as well?
Yeah, it's wrestling, swimming, and basketball. The state of Ohio, the OHSAA, has decided to leave it up to each individual school district to make the decision on what's best for their district based on current COVID, issues in each community. So every school is free to do as they please, which I think kind of pits us against each other. I don't like it, but I do understand that it's probably the fairest thing to do and not blanket the entire state into one policy. But from my understanding, the schools that are participating are wrestling, swimming, and basketball. Hockey's going too.
So, and I'm not terribly familiar with wrestling. So obviously there's very close contact going on there. How many kids does each team member wrestle at a meet or during practice?
Well, we don't know if the numbers are going to change. We paused athletics in school the day that wrestling was supposed to start their practices. So we haven't had an official first practice yet. We think our team is going to be in the 30s, mid 30s is about what we think. I talked to Coach Tomaso and I talked to Mrs. Smith this morning. We would most likely limit the number of athletes in the wrestling room. So we'd have to go to probably 2 practices a day, so to speak. At least, staggering who's in our wrestling room. I mean, a typical match, you have 14 weight classes. Not every team has a full roster. We are committed to the conference tournament with all 8 schools at this point, which is in February, which of course could change. We've pulled back from all other tournaments that require any kind of overnight stay or have more than 4 schools. We won't wrestle in anything that has more than 4 schools. And even when you do that, you only wrestle 2 of the 4 schools. Obviously, you don't wrestle yourself. So they call it a quad match. We feel like that we can still keep the kids safe. I have a new, there's a new skin disinfectant. It's almost like foam. When the kids are done wrestling, you literally foam them down. They can wipe it onto their arms and legs and neck and stuff. And it's 99-point-something% effective against not only a COVID kind of virus, but the other types of viruses that wrestlers typically get, different rashes and things like that. So we have stepped up at least one more safety measure, if you could call it, in place for competition and practice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So
You
John,
know, the discussion that you hear, oh, go ahead.
go ahead, John.
Well, the discussion you hear is 10 kids on a basketball court versus just 2 kids on a wrestling mat, which is more, which potentially is more dangerous. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I know this, you know, we went all fall with no cases breaking out with our sports teams. A couple arose in this, you know, before the season started with a couple of our athletes where we had some quarantine issues. But I think we're overall, from what I hear from other schools, I think we're doing a very good job of everything, just in the classrooms and the buildings, as well as with our extracurriculars so far.
And I think waiting to see where this virus goes after Thanksgiving, because I think Kirtland is paused again because they literally started their practices back up, and then it wasn't due to anything they were doing. It's what the kids are choosing to do once they leave their practice. So it's kind of getting back to, we want a season, and we know holidays, people are going to gather, kids are going to be kids and find ways to be with their friends. And so versus trying to bring everybody back and practicing and sharing those germs and then having an outbreak, we thought, let's get through the holiday period to some extent and see where we're at.
So John, you've always done a great job for the district, and you know, especially now during this time that we're dealing with. I mean, you know that I'm a swim parent, and you know our kids swam together years ago in the Otters.
Sure did, yeah.
And so I'm very disappointed as a parent, but as a school board member, I'm fully supportive of everything, all the decisions that you and Angela have made together. You know, I'd love for my son to be swimming right now. I'd love for him to be back in school, you know, but that's just not where we're at. And so I just wanted to say that to you because, you know, I so many parents are disappointed about things, but you know, that as a school board member, I have to make decisions that are in the best interest of the district. And I think they're still in my son's best interest too, by the way, to not be doing that. You know, we're paused right now. So, you know, Coach Sill, swimming coach, he's done a great job of sending information out to the students about things they can do independently for, you know, workouts and things that, you know, they can do at home to try to, you know, work out. I mean, the YMCA is still open for those who are practicing on their own. I mean, but that's individual people making individual decisions. So, but I really appreciate all the work that you've done. And I know it's hard because, you know, these extracurriculars are so important to students and so important to parents and grandparents who want to come and watch these meets and all this stuff. And so I appreciate the work you're doing, but I'm fully supportive, even as a parent who is disappointed for their student. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Douglas. You know, I wear that parent hat too with my 2 boys playing basketball, so I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions?
Anything else? I've got other things on my report then. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Obviously, there's not been anything usual about this board meeting tonight. Usually, you know, for a holiday board meeting, it's taken a rather somber tone this evening, obviously. But I did want to say I look to the day when we can have performances and gather again, and it will be a true celebration, and it will happen. I am confident of that. But I do have a couple positive things that I wanted to share out. First, I continue to applaud our nutrition services staff for providing meals to family during this remote learning period. They switched the pickups to Fridays, and they're trying to accommodate working parents or parents that are at home supervising their kids. So they're doing it at off hours from 3:30 to 5:30, I think. but I just am so grateful for the work that they've been doing. Again, our teachers are doing a phenomenal job switching modalities to accommodate remote learning. I have to give a shout out to Emily Grau, who last week, in the snowstorm and had no power and all of those things, found a way to connect with her kids by teaching remotely outdoors. And she said it was one of her highest attendance days ever. I think word spread. But, the ability to get creative and bring a little bit of joy during this very stressful time on all of us. Our families, they've been wonderful at adapting. I continue to meet twice weekly with my colleagues in Lake County and with the health commissioners of both Geauga and Lake County. And we are continually looking at the data and the course of the virus in the region. So to make informed decisions about what January will look like. We'll get a better idea in another week if we're still purple and what direction we'll go in January. I don't want to even conjecture tonight, if we'll be back on January, that first week in January or not. It just depends on what the direction the virus takes in the next couple weeks. We are still having to quarantine some staff based on outside exposures, and we've had some positive cases, but because we're not in session with students, we don't have to, quarantine whole classrooms of kids. And that part does make the educational process a little easier to provide continuity of instruction. So, nobody's happy in remote learning that has children in school face-to-face. Obviously, it's not the ideal, or they would have picked remote learning, but we're doing the best we can to provide that quality education for our students. And, I cannot thank our administrators and our teachers enough for doing what they do, as well as our support staff. I mean, it is a true team effort, and I'm grateful for them. We are doing the survey to parents are being done at the individual building levels. One, I think it's easier to break it down by the individual building data and then look at the numbers to see what, if any, movements are needed, especially at the elementary level. We have some very tight grade levels, and we're in the final phases of reviewing that data and looking at what we might need to do. High school and middle school just got underway this week. 478 surveys have been turned in at the high school, so they're at a 50% completion rate. We've got about 210 at the middle school, so it's a 3% completion rate. Families at the middle and high have until the end of the week to let people know what their plans are for second semester. We've had elementary did it a little bit differently because we're more concerned about having room and face-to-face from people wanting to move from remote to face-to-face. So they were just surveyed those parents right now that wanted to move from virtual back to the building, because at the heart of all of these decisions are still going to be the ability to social distance and make sure we're keeping people safe. Any questions about any of that? Finally, because I don't think I don't think I attached to Friday's newsletter, and somebody tell me if I'm wrong, the draft of board meeting dates for 2021. I will attach it to this week's newsletter so that we can have some conversation about that at our meeting next week. And we will need to then decide on the meeting date for the organizational meeting. Mike and I looked at things, and we don't anticipate a whole lot of things getting in the way of Tuesday meetings. We're hopeful that May could be a more normal May, but we don't know that yet. Where we would have awards and things like that. But we figured if that's the case, we can always adjust or move things around. Finally, I don't know if you've checked your emails this week from OSBA. My organization, BASA, has been asking us to send letters to our senators, asking them to have a call to action to take up Senate Bill 376, which is the Fair School Funding Plan that the House overwhelmingly passed last week. The Senate is saying they don't have time in the next 2 weeks to entertain what that looks like. Our organizations are saying, if the House can do it, why can't you? Nobody's asking them to allocate dollars to this, which is the one thing that I think for me is all they're asking them to do is adopt a framework, and that to be courageous and adopt that framework. The next legislature would have to attach the dollars to the initial allocation, but they are reluctant to do it. I sent out letters to Senator Eklund, Senator Huffman, Senator Dolan, Senator Obhoff, and Senator Sykes in Akron, because I know Senator Sykes from my years as a teacher in Akron. I had his daughter. So I sent off 5 letters yesterday, just saying, please look at this. To us, it's vital. And I would encourage anybody that feels strongly about seeing a change in school funding to do the same. So that's all I have in my report tonight.
Angela, do you want to talk about our meeting with Senator Eklund?
Sure. We did meet with Senator Eklund last Monday, and so that was part of my letter to him, was a thank you for taking the time to meet with us. Senator Eklund has always been very supportive of Madison and has always listened anytime we've ever had any concerns to bring to the table. He had some questions because we did talk about the Fair School Funding Plan, and he did have some questions about why certain components were important. I guess in a later meeting with Mike Hanlon of Chardon, he also asked some of the same questions about some of the wraparound supports put into the bill. But Senator Eklund was very, very supportive of Madison. I wished Senator-elect Serino could be there because he is the one that's going to be voting on dollars in the next budget. But we are committed to getting meetings with all of these gentlemen going forward, whether it's Representative Callender or Senator-elect Serino, to much the same, to sort of bring them up to speed about our situation in Madison and why we are where we're at. Senator Eklund was very complimentary that we continue to do what we need to do to keep our doors open no matter the situation. But I think, we need a little help this time. Sean, Mike, do you have anything, Dave, that you want to add to that?
I think it was a good meeting. Senator Eklund was very interested in everything we had to say. I mean, unfortunately, Senator Eklund's going to be done, with his service here at the end of the year, and Senator-elect Serino will be taking over. So as you said, we're very hopeful we can get a meeting with him so that we can talk about that. He just simply wasn't available for this particular meeting. You've already written the governor, and you just listed a whole slew of senators that you've contacted about this. I mean, this isn't just about getting Madison money. That's not what we're trying to explain our circumstances as an example as to why the Cupp-Patterson proposal, is a good solution to school funding. So I'm sure Mike could explain the school funding issue far better than I could ever begin to explain it. But it's a much more reasonable school funding proposal than most anyone's seen in many, many years. And so we're hopeful that our efforts will improve funding for schools in general. At the same time, we realize, anytime that money is being diverted to schools in the state of Ohio, that money's got to come from somewhere else, because there's only so much state funding, so only so much federal funding that the states can, distribute. So we understand that, but that doesn't make our plight any easier, and we have to, run the school district. So we're trying this. We also understand that we have responsibilities to try to raise money other ways. So, I think it was a good meeting. I'm very hopeful that we can get a meeting with Senator Serino, Senator-elect Serino. Sorry.
I'm curious. I spoke to Senator Eklund a few years back about the catastrophic claims dollars that were associated with special education. And I believe Mike has had a similar conversation. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but I thought when I had told you that I spoke with him about that you had mentioned that you had also spoken to him about that in the past. Obviously nothing had ever changed. Did those catastrophic costs come up in any of this conversation that you all had with him?
They didn't on the meeting we had Monday. My conversation about those was with Ron Young when he was a state representative.
Oh,
But in the funding plan, they do address the special ed costs and the additional funds for catastrophic costs. I don't think it'll be fully funded, but they recognize that it's currently underfunded. So, and we did express that, while we know that this can't be fully funded year one, that's just not possible. We would be appreciative of having a funding plan that reflects what it takes financially to educate a student in Ohio.
And that was the gist of my letters, and I will attach those to the newsletter on Friday. I just said, if we have a plan, it's not a random guess as to what you're going to change. That helps everybody to plan better. And that's been the message of all the people that have worked very, very hard on getting Cup-Patterson as far as they've gotten it. So today's email, because yesterday, was the cry to action. Today's email said, encourage people to continue to write to get them to take this on. And it was in bold red lettering at the top. So, we've got to make the impossible happen and hopefully get this Senate to at least take up the conversation and start the hearing process.
So just to point out, the Cup-Patterson bill that we're talking about is a bipartisan bill that would fund education.
Correct.
So, I'm sure someone else could explain it, but either Cup or Patterson is a Democrat or Republican. I don't recall which one at the moment, but this is a bipartisan bill to fund education, which it is significant, because this is not, typically you think of education, and that would be one particular party or another. That's not the case here. These are two different representatives who've come together from different parties to give this a go. And it's got widespread, significant support among school districts. So, we're supportive of it.
And the House, it was 87 to 7 or something was the vote. Right. And Cup is the Republican because he is Speaker of the House. That's how I know. That's how I remember that. I wouldn't have known that a few weeks ago. He became Speaker in the House after the householder situation.
Job I wouldn't want to have in the last 5 years, but okay. Ohio.
Okay. That is it this evening for our reports.
Okay.
I gave Dave a pass since he's under the weather. So, are you ready for my recommendations?
Sure.
They're very short tonight.
Yeah, we're ready.
All right, we're asking for you to approve the following temporary transfer to temporarily transfer Diane Coe from an 8-hour position as a second shift custodian at South Elementary School to an 8-hour position as head day custodian at Madison Middle School, effective November 25th, 2020. And then to employ Diane Coe as a head day custodian at Madison Middle School, effective January 1st, 2021.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Michael Howry, I didn't hear.
He's muted.
Oh, he's muted.
He's muted.
Let's take care of that.
He's
Okay,
thumbed up.
Michael Howry,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath,
Yes.
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
vote is 5-0.
And the other item under the recommendations is to adjust the new minimum wage to $8.80 an hour, effective January 1st, 2021, pursuant to the Fair Labor Standards Act.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath,
Yes.
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howry,
Yes.
vote is 5-0.
Then under the consent calendar, we're asking you to approve a few consultant contracts. First is for Paige Fellows as a coach for Madison High School girls soccer, effective August 24th, 2020 through October 30th, 2020, at a rate not to exceed $600. To approve a consultant contract for Dan Selfbar as a coach for Madison High School football, effective August 24th, 2020 through October 30th, 2020, at a rate not to exceed $2,500 with funds donated by the Madison Gridiron Club. To approve a consultant contract for Braden Jerome as a coach for Madison High School football, effective August 24th, 2020 through October 30th, 2020, at a rate not to exceed $2,500 with funds donated by Madison Gridiron Club. And to approve the following persons as volunteer coaches for the Madison robotics team, Mark Winter and Greg Mabe.
I'll
I'll
move.
move. I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I have a, I have a question on the designation of the term consultant.
Okay.
Yeah, can you, I'm sure that word has shown up before, but I'm just a little confused. how it's applied.
These, because we have only so many approved coaches by contract, sometimes teams feel they need additional coaches and they use outside funds through donations that we can designate them once that money's been donated to pay those people. They may work in the weight room with kids. They may do just certain types of conditioning, those types of things. And we waited this year because of COVID. They didn't want to issue them as consultant contracts until they knew that they were, going to complete the seasons.
That was the other question, so there you go. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Appreciate the volunteer coaches for the robotic team, Mark Winter, Greg Mabe.
Yeah.
Volunteering their time.
We can have it this year, I hope.
It's admirable. Any other discussion?
Nope.
Roll call?
Brian Horvath,
Yeah.
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howry,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
vote is 5-0.
Okay, we'll now open the public participation portion for this evening. This is on any item. Anyone wishing to address the board on anything they'd like to talk about has 5 minutes to do so. If you could state your name and address for the board, please.
So Joe and Jeff, I've given you the ability to unmute yourselves if you so choose.
Joe, did you want to say something? She said, Joe.
Yeah, Joe, do you want to say
Yeah.
something? You're unmuted.
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble here with this set here. Only thing I wanted to ask a question about is the grading. How is the grading coming on this virtual learning thing here?
They are grading the way they have always graded. Last spring, we made some concessions. There's no concessions now. The students are being graded on the work that they do for the value that they do. It's just like they would be in a regular classroom.
Yeah, I've been hearing some reports that the students aren't doing as well with this type of learning thing. There's a lot of F's being given out, and that they said that instead of grading on a 100%, they're grading on a 50% scale. I mean, I don't understand this at all.
Well, that's the first I've heard about a 50% scale. They are, if students aren't showing up, that's part of the problem, but that's the problem nationwide, Joe, right now. We're not looking just at Madison. The whole country is dealing with the effects of remote learning. There's not a person at this table right now or on this Zoom meeting that does not think our students should be in school full time. That is what we want. That is what needs to happen. It just needs to happen when we can staff safely and have everybody there. Teachers are doing their due diligence to track down students that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, and those things. I know we've got one teacher on the call, and she'll tell you how hard she works day in and day out to keep these kids engaged and learning.
Yeah. Now when these kids get to graduate here, how are they going to have some difficulties when they start college, if they do start college in a regular way?
That's a good question. I don't think so, because those that are going on to college are taking that college prep load and are doing what's expected of them. So my answer would be, I would hope not. But I think, everybody's looking at probably at least last spring that we're making up and closing some gaps. So yes, we're working hard with our seniors to make sure they're ready for the next step.
Joe,
Well,
this is Michelle. If I could just say something right quick. It also depends on the student and how they learn. I personally have 2 children that are still in the school system. One that is doing very, very well online, actually does better with online schooling than she does with in-person schooling. I believe that it's because she has no problems with emailing her teacher and emailing her friends, asking questions about what's going on in the classroom. Whereas she is hesitant to raise her hand in class and ask questions and bring attention to herself. So for her, online schooling has been wonderful. Then I have a son who, when he's in school, is a straight A student. And when he's doing virtual, he still performed well, but not as well. His grades dropped to C's and B's. He's still passing, but not as well in virtual as he does in person. So I think it also depends on the student and how they learn.
yeah, I agree with you. My 2 granddaughters both went to this virtual classroom, and they both say that it's very difficult and very hard to understand, and they wish that they'd go back to the standard teaching.
And I do want to say that, and I've said this often and I can't say it enough, we did everything we could to make sure that whether you were in the remote or in person, you had Madison teachers. There are some school districts that bought a canned program, my granddaughter's school being one of them, and she sees a teacher for maybe a half hour a day. And the rest of it is you go on to the canned program and you see videos, robot type teachers, and she's in third grade and it's hard to keep her engaged.
Yeah. Yeah, strange world, that's for sure. Yep.
So Joe, I just want to add that, what we're hearing from nationwide is that the students who seem to be struggling the most are the students who don't have internet access. And that's not really a problem in Madison. We have, if a student reports to us that they don't have internet access, we have what they call hotspots. These are ways that the student can get access to the internet without having Wi-Fi at home. For those of us, well, I'm on Wi-Fi right now. For those of us that don't have Wi-Fi at home, we're able to provide those. And that was part of our last board meeting. Mike Vaccarello talked about that specifically, about how many additional hotspots that we had purchased. So I think in many school districts, that's the problem, is that these kids just don't have access. Now, some kids don't have support at home and they're just not logging on. And there's only so much the school district can do about that. If your student isn't logging on and dealing with the teacher and dealing with their work, well, I mean, the school district can only go so far when we're remote. Now, obviously, at the beginning of the school year, we gave everyone an opportunity to choose whether they wanted their student to be in person or whether they wanted their student to be remote. And we did that as long as we could until our county basically went purple. And so, Mike was diligent and his team about making sure that we had those hotspots available for students who didn't have internet access. So I just want to point that out, that, certainly there are students who do better in person, and we realize that. And, we're purple right now based on the recommendation of the health commissioner in our county. This is something I want to stress significantly, that, our school board didn't decide we just prefer to go remote right now. That's not what we did. The Lake County General Health District Commissioner, Ron Graham, recommended to school districts in Lake County who went purple, which is all of us, to go remote. And for us to say as a school board there's no doctors on this school board. None of us are medical professionals. For us to substitute our judgment over that of the health commissioner, it just was not advisable. For a whole lot of reasons, health-wise, legally, there's just a whole lot of reasons why we couldn't do that. So my son, we signed my son up for in person. He does not want to be home right now. He wants to be in person. I want him in person, but I can't say, I'm going to say, well, the health commissioner's wrong and our school board's right. So we have to follow the recommendation of the health commissioner. We put ourselves in a very terrible position as a school board. So I just think, I'm expanding on your question, but I just think it's important information for people to have.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks. Well, that pretty well covers anything that I had to say.
Okay,
Sean,
thanks.
before Gretchen gets on, just to update on the hotspots, we gave away the last one of the additional 15 that I got in. We gave the last one away yesterday. So today I've ordered 5 more. So we'll always have some in stock should somebody run into trouble or, have a sketchy internet. We don't want kids not to be able to learn because the internet in their home isn't sufficient.
That's what I was actually going to interject. Mike, Gretchen Bapty, 6686 Stratford Road. I wanted to follow up from the last meeting. Mike had mentioned that there were hotspots available, and I had a student who is in a position where she's between 2 households, and one of her households had no internet, and we were able to get her set up. I reached out to my building administrator and to Mike, and we were able to get her a hotspot, and she was able to get on this morning She had been Zooming in for our meetings from her mother's phone using cellular data, but you can't complete online assignments on a cell phone. It's just not feasible. And so thank you so much for those hotspots. I just want the board to know that they really are being useful. I'm seeing that she was very excited to get online and to be able to do her work today. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else wishing to address the board? All right, do we have a need for executive session?
Not this evening.
No.
Nothing, Mike?
No.
Okay, do we have a motion for adjournment?
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howry,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Ryan Horvath.
Yes.
Vote is 5-0.
All right, have a good night, everyone.
Night,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.